That's all I have for today. And I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Jamil to take over the stage. Welcome, Dr. Jamil.
Thank you so much, Alina. I am deeply grateful to be here with you all. I want to start by saying Happy New Year. Alina mentioned this is the first event you guys are doing for the year. And I think that starting the year off, getting really clear how to get what it is that you want, how to get out of your own way, and how to overcome any of the challenges or obstacles maybe you've experienced in the past that have potentially prevented you from creating what it is that you want. So I'm going to do two things. If it's not already happening, sometimes there's background noise. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a mute all. Okay, perfect. And then throughout the presentation, there's going to be some moments where there'll be some interaction and I'll ask for a few people to share. And so, if you feel called to, just please raise your hand, unmute yourself, and then we'll take it from there. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, and if I could just get some thumbs up if you can see this. Wonderful. All right. Give me 1 second to fix that. All right. Perfect. All right. So today's presentation is called How to Make Your Goals a Reality in 2021 and Beyond. Everything that's in here is not just the and beyond part, I think, is so crucial because it's not just, oh, this is what works, right now. This will work the rest of your life. These are big picture principles that have a far-reaching effect in your life. And so a couple guidelines for today. The first one, Alina mentioned it a little bit. Take notes. I highly recommend you have pen and paper, write down the big insights that you have, the things that stand out to you. When you write it down, it increases your retention. And if you review it, let's say within the next 48 hours or so, it further solidifies that into who you are. And then if you want to take it a step further, teach it to someone, a partner, a spouse, a friend, whoever it is, teach what you're learning. And I think you'll find in your own life, you probably experienced, if you're teaching somebody something, you learn it even better. So one of the best ways to remember something is to try to teach it to somebody else. Learn it as if you're going to teach it. Second, remain open-minded. Some things in this presentation you haven't heard before, some things you have, and that's completely okay. You take what's useful to you, and anything that's not, you let it go. Think of it like a buffet. You don't go into the buffet with the mindset, I have to eat everything here. And if you try, it's usually a losing strategy. You go into the buffet with the mindset, oh, look at all the good stuff, but you pick and choose and you can always come back later for a second helping. And the third is play all out. Give 100% of you to this experience. Give yourself a gift of, for the next, let's say, hour or so, 90 minutes that we're together, be present. Phone's on airplane mode, do not disturb. It's across the room. Like, give yourself the gift of 100% focus, because if you do that, you'll get more out of this. If I ask for any interaction, don't be shy. Leaders go first. Be the person who's going to raise their hand, because you find, like back in the day when you're in school, teacher's asking a question, nobody wants to raise their hand. And then once the first person does, all of a sudden, all the other hands start moving. And so, choose to step into that leadership role. Use this as an opportunity to do that. Ask questions during the Q&A period, share insights that you have, because the insight that you have, the question that you have, might really help somebody else. And so those are the general ground rules of today. Sound good?
Awesome. Sounds great.
So a little bit about me. Today is not about me, it's about you. And so Alina already read my bio. I'm not going to go into that. All I'm going to share is why I do what I do. The reason that is the foundational kind of driver for me. And I think it'll give you a deeper understanding about, why I'm here. And so, for me, when I was 19 years old, that was the most transformative experience of my life. I was in my second year in undergrad in the city, in the Bronx. I'm from New York. And my father had a brain aneurysm. And for anyone who's not familiar with what that is, imagine one of the blood vessels in the brain, think of it like a tube, starts to balloon out. And if you're fortunate, you have a really bad headache and you go to the hospital and they clip it and you leave and you're good to go. But my dad wasn't as fortunate, and his aneurysm ruptured. And he was in a 4-hour brain surgery. And the neurosurgeon said it was the worst aneurysm he'd ever seen. And we were told his survival rate was less than 5%. And I was 19, he's 49, and he survived the surgery. So right there already, it was a miracle. And we were told if he survived it, he probably would never wake up. He'd probably be in a coma. And I walk into the room after the surgery and he was in a coma. And for me, like my dad, like, this is my dad. He was the epitome of what it meant to be a man for me. And he was a family practice physician, but he was also one of the top Elvis impersonators in the world. Music was his life. He would be on stage and he would have a couple hundred or thousand people in the audience, and all the money is going to like the hospital charity. And he actually toured with Elvis's band, and like that was his thing. He loved it. He would always say, "My colleagues have golf, I have Elvis." And for me, this was a guy, he had so much life. And now there he was in this hospital bed, and not to be graphic, but his head was shaven, brain surgery obviously, and a million wires coming out of him, and I didn't have the medical background, and I was just sitting there at the time, and there was these two feelings that were overwhelming me in that moment. The first was this feeling of feeling helpless. I wanted to do something. I wanted to help. I wanted to do something to make his situation better. And in the moment, it didn't feel like I could do anything other than wait. But we were being told he was in this critical place and he could die at any minute. And so that brought the second thought, the second experience, which was a profound sense of regret. I felt that I had taken my dad for granted. I felt like I was 19, he's 49, like I said, and I didn't have the relationship with him that I could have. I felt like my priorities at the time, like many people my age, it was my friends. I was a track and field athlete. So it was sports, it was my friends, it was video games, it was movies, it was school, it was all that. And the mindset was, oh, he's only 49. I've got 30, 40, 50 more years with him. There's that expression, the problem is you think you have time. None of us know. And there's a Dalai Lama quote that always comes to mind when I share this story, where he says, most people live as if they're never going to die, and then they die having never really lived. They live with this pushing it off to tomorrow, always procrastinating on the things that matter most to them. And so there I was at 19 thinking I messed up, that I wasn't going to have a chance to really connect with my dad again. I had all these people throughout my life telling me how incredible my dad was, people who grew up with him, and I didn't know him in that way. And he survived another 3 years before he passed away. And I had my prayers answered in those 3 years. I took 2 years off after I graduated to be one of his primary caregivers. And he became one of my best friends. I got to spend 8, 10, 15 hours a day with him. And we would do physical therapy together. We both sing, and he's a drummer. And it was incredible. We bonded in ways that I never would have dreamed, and that I did deeply want. And there were some of my highest highs and some of my lowest lows, because of the aneurysm, he had short-term memory loss, and he also was prone to seizures. And so there were moments where it was his birthday and we did something really special for him, and we were really excited because he loved it. He had a great time. And now imagine doing that for someone you really care about, and then 2 hours go by and they completely forget about the whole thing, and they say, oh yeah, we didn't do anything today. And not only was it unfortunate from that perspective, but from an emotional place, we really wanted like the old dad back. And so whenever the memory problem kicked in, there was this knowing that, we're probably not going to get that back. And so it was really difficult. And the first year and a half or so, I went to bed every day wondering if that's the last time I'm going to see my dad. And I woke up every morning wondering, like kind of in a fog, was that a dream? And I couldn't tell until I went downstairs and I saw him, and life was always different. And there were, dark times, but there were also really beautiful moments, some of my happiest memories. And after 3 years, when he passed away, I remember being at his wake next to the casket for 5 hours, and over 7,000 people came. And I shook every single one of their hands. And almost everyone said, your dad saved my life. And people from different religions and different cultures were paying their respects and praying over the casket in their own way. And I felt so humbled by the impact that this man had. Most of these people hadn't seen him since he was in his late 40s, and he was 53 when he passed. And at the same time, there was this knowing, this realization that I'd been playing small, and that I cared way too much about other people thought about me, that I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid about what people really thought, which allowed me to dim my shine. I think we all have this divine spark, this light in us that's unique to us. It's a way that we can serve the world and contribute that is unique to us. No one can do it the way we can. But most of us are trying to run somebody else's race. We're holding back because we've conditioned ourselves to be ashamed, or we're feeling like I have to wear the mask. This is who I need to be enough, to be validated, to be normal, for you to love me, all these kind of things. And I really saw myself doing that. And there was like this light switch moment, never again. And so after that period, I took a year off to be with my family. I'd been coaching for years prior to that. And I coached through that experience with my dad. I got a beautiful opportunity for 2 years to work at a medical office. And it was like every medical student's dream prior to med school. And then I went to Arizona, spent 5 years over there, went to school, got my license, did all that, continued my coaching. And I've been really blessed at this point to work with people from around the world. The people that really resonate with me, leaders and high performers. And what I mean by that is when I say a leader, it's somebody who wants to make an impact. They want to make a difference in the world bigger than just them. It's about their family. It's about their community. It's about their company. It's about the world, depending on the size of their vision. And when I say high performer, it's somebody who the things that matter most to them, they want to be and do the best they can at that. And then when I have that kind of person, helping them create an extraordinary life, which means a life on their terms, a life that when you go to sleep at night and your head hits the pillow, if I told you you weren't going to wake up tomorrow, could you look back and say, wow, what a journey? Or would you stop and think, no, like I haven't lived, I've just been existing. And then the last part is an extraordinary life without regret. And that brings it full circle to that experience when I was 19 with my dad. I have met so many people throughout my life, whether they were 70, 80, and 90, or whether they were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and everywhere in between, who are either living a life currently that they would regret in some fashion, or they're at the end of their life and they're looking back and they're thinking, I really wish I could do that over again. That I didn't live my life, I lived somebody else's version of my life. And so that was what I want to share with you to open up, to give you an idea, of kind of where I'm coming from in my mindset, what the foundation of this presentation is, but also think of this like a wake-up call. Think of this like, this is not just some opportunity for you to take some great notes. You don't get any points for having like the sexiest notebook in town. You need to actually apply. You need to sit here and say, what's not working in my life? How do I want this year to be different than last year? And when you actually come up with what that is, you act on it. If you don't act on it, nothing changes. Sounds good?
Wow, Dr. Jamil, this was really powerful. This was very, very impactful. Thank you for sharing your life story. It
I was
definitely,
holding my tears back.
yeah,
Like,
makes you, step
like
back
I
and
can
think.
relate because of my dad, right? So when you were saying that, it's all about, wow, like it was just really good. Like
Thank
I
you so
get
much.
you.
Thank you, Jonah and Alina, and anyone who didn't say anything. If they've got some thoughts going right now, I appreciate you. Thank you. So a little bit about why I'm here today. The purpose of today, I'm here to provide massive value to you, have fun with you all, and make this as beautiful of an experience as possible. I find oftentimes in presentations like this, there's some people have in the back of their mind, what's this guy trying to sell me? And I'm here to tell you there is no sales pitch. I've got nothing to offer you at the end. This is a pure give. This is a pure value add. And the reason is because partnering with people to transform their life and making their dreams come true, that's what I live for. And I trust that the right people who resonate with my style, they're interested in getting some personalized support, they'll reach out. If that's you, looking forward to being in conversation with you. And if it's not, I hope today is as valuable as possible for you because I'm not going to hold anything back. So let's get started. So I want to start by asking you all, what is a goal? And so I just kind of opened up my chat so I could see everybody. And if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand and just sharing, 10 seconds or so, what that means to you. What does it mean for a goal? And once you raise your hand, you can unmute yourself.
I guess I'll start. Well,
Thank you,
I'll give
Alina.
other folks time to think about it. So, goal is a dream of yours, something that you would like to achieve. You put it together. It could be a long-term or a short-term goal, and you put it together, and then you come up with the steps on how you plan to achieve such goal. or that-
Beautiful. Thank you, Alina, so much for
I would
owning that
say,
leadership role.
well, I would say it's a challenge. It's to create a sense of fulfillment.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be based on, the version of what society has embedded in our minds. So it's an inner growth. And that's how I see my own goals. And, I hope to translate that in all the people that I, connect with and, build friendships with as well. So that's how I see a goal. It's an uphill climb.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jonah. Anyone else want to add anything?
I'll go. I see a goal like today's fulfillment, like today's giving up today's what's the word? In order to get the fulfillment in the future, you have to give it up today. So, you want to spend money today to have a shiny new car, but to get to that goal, you just procrastinate that for later satisfaction.
Yeah, so it's like delayed gratification.
That's what I meant. Why did you just say that?
And
Going
let's
in
do one
circles
more.
everywhere.
Would one more person like to share?
I think a goal is when you want to accomplish something, is like the end of that one chapter of your life. One of my goals is become financially independent right now. So that's what I'm like, I work towards that. That's what I want to get to that point in my life where I feel that I have accomplished something.
Beautiful. Thank you, Diego. Wonderful. All right. So with all that in mind, I want to say you guys have phenomenal definitions of what a goal is. And this is what a goal is for most people. For most people, a goal is a wish. For most people, a goal is a preference. A goal is an it would be nice if. And so when you think about that, it would be nice if I made more money. It would be nice if I lost some weight. It would be nice if my business was successful this year. It would be nice if my business partner or my intimate partner or my spouse or whatever the case may be, and I had a better relationship or we got along. And this is the kind of New Year's resolution potentially type of goals. How many of you have set one of those in the past? Yeah. And so you may or may not have heard this before, that the average time for New Year's resolutions to kind of fall off track, the average time for a person to kind of give up on it, it's between the second week of January and early February. So you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks tops for like 50% or more of people to really give up on whatever that goal is. And so something to keep in mind, when you made a decision and it gets uncomfortable, you have a choice. And please write this down. It's a distinction of you can run away or you can find a way. And what I mean by that, a lot of you are familiar with that the metaphor, burn the boats. People talk about this idea, if you want to take the island, you burn the boats. Because if you don't, when it gets hard, when you get backed into the corner, you can just get on the ships and retreat. But if you burn the boats, the only way back home is with the other people's boats. And so in this metaphor, when you make a decision and you're going forward and life gets tough, you either run away because you didn't burn the boats so you can retreat, or you find a way. And when you find a way, any successful person, that's what they're doing. So first and foremost, get in each of our minds, this is not like resolution means to resolve. It means to get done. It's not just like it would be nice if. Like this is gonna happen. And this is why we get into all successful people share one thing in common. And before I tell you what I believe it is, I want to get 2 people to share, ideally people who have not spoken before. Would anyone like to raise their hand and speak? What's something all successful people have in common?
You write down goals.
Can I?
Hold on one second. Mario, is it Marios? Is that how you say it?
Marios, yeah, you got it.
Perfect. You went first, so go for it.
Yeah, I would say something I find in all successful people is just their dedication and their willpower to work hard. I think I see that time and time again. I'm in corporate sales. I'm a sales manager, and the people that really stand out, it's not rocket science. It's just consistency and hard work and following through on everything.
Beautiful. And there was someone else. I heard another voice, but everyone came at the same time. So just raise your hand.
That
first.
was me, I think. That was me.
Hey, chat. Yeah, go for it.
I think it's persistence and tenacity.
Perfect. Short and sweet. Love it. Thank you. All right. So both of you, I would say, are right. I just hit the button, so you're seeing the answer. They made a decision. And this is the key part here, because both of you are right. And the first step to getting that is they made a decision. So just please write that down because it's not as obvious as it might sound in the beginning. Successful people, they've committed to their future success. I believe it was Evangeline. I think it was you, the delayed gratification. You're committed to what you want to create in the future. And so when you decide, you draw this line in the sand. You say, this is how it's going to be. When you think of the word decision and decide, there's a root of each of those words. Decision comes from incision, meaning to cut off. And decide, the end of that is side. And side means to kill, kind of like pesticide. Excuse me. So when you decide, when you make a decision, you're cutting off, killing off all other possibilities other than the one that you said you were going to do. So there is nothing more powerful than you can do than make a decision. But most of the time, we don't make decisions, we have preferences. So something as an interesting little experiment, what we're going to share once again, please tell me the difference, what you believe to be between being interested in something and being committed to something. Someone who hasn't shared yet, please raise your hand. Interested versus committed.
I mean, a lot of people are interested on so many different things. Like I'm interested in, man, I can't, maybe like 20 different things.
Yeah.
Right. Commitment is like more like marriage. Commitment is more like long-term commitment. I mean, it's, whatever it takes type of mentality. And
Yeah.
commitment, like somebody else said, consistency and discipline.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
the difference.
you. Thank you, William. And I love the, you use marriage as an example. And so I want to, use that. I want, how many of you by a show of hands are married? Yeah. And so think about it from this perspective. There you are about to be married and your partner said, you say, I do. And then your partner says, I'll try. It's like, and you think about how that might feel in that moment. And it's like, I'll try. It's like, the heck is that? It's like, what do you mean I'll try? And it's like, when we are interested in something, there's this type of maybe, we'll see, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If it's comfortable, I'll do it. If it's uncomfortable, I might back away. But commitment is an all in. Commitment is, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to make a way. This is happening. Like, you can count on it. Like, that level of decision, you will create anything that you want in your life. And I would go as far as saying, whatever that is not in your life that you want in your life, it's not in your life because you're not committed to it. Now, there's a caveat to that. You might be committed to it and it just takes time to manifest. So you're in the middle of making it happen. You're in the process of making it come true. That's different than if I were to say, what is it that you want? And you tell me what your goal is. And I say, how long has that been your goal? And you say 2 years. And I say, well, what have you done about it so far? And you say, nothing. You don't want it. You only think you want it. It's a preference, it's an interest, but you're not committed to it. Otherwise you would do something about it. So really stand in that. And everything I say to you, just as a preface, this is all out of love. This is all out of respect for you, because you are capable of so much more. You could be crushing it right now in several areas of your life. You're still capable of so much more than you're showing. And so from that place, where can you raise the bar, raise the standard, raise your commitment? So ask yourself those questions. Most people, they dabble. They live in this land of maybe and someday and we'll see, I'll try. And they wonder why they don't have what they want. Come from a place of commitment. Successful people decide to be successful. Because a lot of people think that failure, in the book that I wrote, there's a line I have in there where I say, let me get my direct quote. So I say that failure is a stepping stone to success, not an execution sentence to your dreams. A lot of people look at failure as, oh no, I tried, it didn't go well, therefore maybe I'm not good at it. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Nobody is good at it or cut out for it unless they've given it time and attention and they've practiced it. But oftentimes really smart people forget that. Some of the most deadly words that are dream killers that so many of us use, I know that already. Some of this stuff sounds real basic and you go, I've heard that before, but there's a lot of areas in your life where you don't do it. There's a lot of areas in your life where you could apply it more. There's a reason why it's like the foundation. It needs to be strong. And if it's not, Where can you like tweak it a little bit? So we talked about they made a decision. So the question now becomes, what kind of decisions do they make? And I ask you to please take notes on these. The first one, they make a decision to take 100% responsibility for their life. The person who takes responsibility has all of the control. It's not a matter of blame. It's a matter of responsibility when you break it up. It's the ability to respond. You're sitting there saying, there's areas of my life right now that aren't what I want them to be. And I'm going to take 100% ownership to do something about that. Because if I take that ownership, that responsibility, I have the power. But if I say, no, so-and-so, that person, this situation, the economy, whatever, that needs to change first, then you're going to be waiting practically forever. There are people in every situation who find a way to win. And so when you think of whatever it is, you all probably do different things. Maybe some of you do similar things, but the point being, if anyone in your industry is winning, even when most people seem to be losing, then there's a way. And so at that point, you can be the one to find the way. You can look at the people that are figuring it out, learn from them, and then do it yourself. Or you can just buy into the story that it's hard. You can buy into the story that, this is just the way that it is. And then that becomes your truth. That becomes your reality. But that doesn't serve you. Again, you're so much more capable. Even if you're wildly successful, you're so much more capable than you're showing. The second decision is to create a vision. And not only any vision, but a vision that excites you. The question to always ask yourself, does this goal excite me? Like, do I get giddy when I talk about it? My favorite word is enthusiasm. And enthusiasm comes from ante theos. It's a Greek word. Ante theos means the God within. And when you're enthusiastic, when you see someone who's just radiating passion and enthusiasm, there's this, like I used the word earlier, like divine spark. There's this God that is radiating this, whether you're religious or not. It's like this energy. It's like there's this infectious vibe that they've got. And it's because they're excited about it. It turns their spirit on. When you've got that energy, nothing can stop you. But if you don't have that energy, a lot of things can get in your way because it's going to be hard. Steve Jobs had a quote where he talked about how you have to have passion for what you love, because if you don't, you'll quit because you're sane, because it's hard. There's times where life knocks you down. There's times where the market crashes, or there's times where various aspects of any of your individual industries make it difficult to be successful. But if you're really passionate, if you love it, you keep going, you find a way. And so always ask yourself, does my goal excite me? As we go through this process today, and I'm going to have something for you to do over the weekend to really solidify this, whatever your vision is, whatever your goal is, does it excite you? If it doesn't, I ask you to dive deeper because you haven't found it yet. And the goals, let me go back for 1 second. The goals that do excite you, they actually become almost effortless to accomplish because you would want to do it anyway. Everything requires work. Everything requires effort. You have to do something to get what you want. And at the same time, there's that old expression, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Not because you're not working, but because it feels like play. When it feels like play, it's enjoyable, time flies. And it energizes you versus drains you. So it's almost as if, wow, I just worked 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, but I can keep going. Like, I actually want to do this more. And so from that place, does it excite me? And you'll find when it excites you, it's so much easier to stay on track. It's so much easier to get back up when you fall down. It's so much easier to resist temptation. Excuse me. Third thing to write down is successful people make a decision to connect to their why. But again, this is one of those things that this has become such a kind of a hot topic, start with why, connect with your why, all that kind of stuff. People say, oh, I know that. Far often than not, though, this is the main reason why you lose your motivation. And it's because you might be connected to it intellectually, but you disconnect it from your heart. I've met so many people that I've spoken to, whether they be coaching clients of mine or whether they be just friends, family, who feel at one point they were just on fire. They loved what they were doing. They were inspired. They were going after it. And then at some point, it got monotonous. At some point, they were just going through the motions, the day-to-day, and they started feeling this loss of energy. And they were like, why am I doing this? And they were thinking about quitting. And then we'd be in conversation. And a simple question, why'd you do this in the first place? So like, why did you get started? Why'd you go down this path? What was important to you about it? And you ask a question like that 5 times, 7 times, 10 times, but each time going deeper and deeper and deeper. And what I have found every single time, you do this with somebody else, you do this by yourself, you journal it out, you're probably going to start crying because there is something that was at the core. You're doing this for a reason. And that goes to this next aspect, raising your necessity. Why does it matter? Who's counting on you? Why does it matter that you need to be successful? Who are you supporting? This could be children. This could be parents. You know, I've had clients that say, I want to retire my parents. I want to buy them a home. I have other clients who say, you know, I take a certain amount of my income and I create wells in Africa, and they've given water to all these people and it's freaking beautiful. And that's their necessity. I forgot the number off the top of my head, but there's millions of people every day that die of dehydration, or, you know, not every day, but people like that who die of 150,000 people every day pass away. And a good percentage of those are from dehydration, malnourishment, things that we in Western countries don't even really think about. And so as an example, that might be your necessity. But at the end of the day, you connect to your why intellectually and heart-based. Why did I start this in the first place? Why am I doing it? Why does it matter? And then necessity, who's counting on me? Whose life would improve if I succeed? And what would that be like? Why does that matter? Why is that important? You know, you might have a partner who hates their job and it's kind of draining them of energy. And you're thinking, if I make enough money, then they don't have to work there anymore. Well, that's a beautiful reason to have necessity. But what you see so far, we still have a few more to go, but just combining, taking 100% responsibility for your life, that ownership, that I control my experience. And if I don't like it, I'm going to do something about it. Then creating the vision. What do I want? And making sure it excites me. Going after something that matters to you. Then connecting to your why, heart and mind, both of them. And then raising necessity. When you raise the necessity, you're sitting there and saying, all right, people are counting on me. This is important. And then you actually stand up in the hard times, because it's not just about you. It's easy to give up when it's just you. But when other people are counting on you, then you might just do it for them. Abraham Lincoln had a great quote where he ran for president. Don't quote me on the number, but it's somewhere like 8 to 15 times, somewhere in that range. And he lost every time. And then he won the last one. And somebody said to him, you know, what made you persevere? And he said, I had a friend who believed in me, and I didn't have the heart to let him down. And then he ends up becoming president. In that same way, who is it that you don't have the heart to let down? Who is it that's counting on you? And if it's not somebody who's currently in your life, who do you want to be in your life in the future that you don't want to let down? Think of it from this perspective. It goes such a long way. The next is to raise your standards. Every single one of us is tolerating something. There's something in your life that might have served you really well up until this point, or maybe at some point in the past, and you've just been holding on to it. It doesn't belong in your life anymore. It is draining you of energy. It does not feel good. It is holding you back. And so many people who I'm speaking with, it's not just about adding. What can I do? What can I add? What routine? What this? That's part of it. But let's start with subtraction. What can you take away? What can you stop doing? What's draining you of energy that if we just stop doing that would free up so much space for you, free up a lot of mental bandwidth, mental real estate, since we're in a real estate kind of event. Yeah. And so from that place, ask yourself, what am I tolerating? And I, you know, my recommendation, write that question down. What am I tolerating? And you sit with it. And today, tomorrow, the next day, make a list. What am I tolerating? This could be people. It could be relationships that don't serve you anymore. They don't feel good. They don't bring you up. They drain you. It could be things that I think of it like a life audit. It could be things you're reading. It could be people in your life. It could be the environment that you're in. It could be so many different things, but think of it like it's the food that you're giving your mind. It's how you're spending your time. And if it's not serving you anymore, I highly recommend you to say, that's no longer acceptable. I'm going to raise the standard in my life. Just like making a decision, that's the line in the sand. I don't go back. And finally, boldly stepping into your new identity. In order for you to create this new life, you have to give up the old one. That makes sense? It goes into what Evangeline said a little bit. this idea of sacrificing now for what you want in the future, there's a future life that you want. And if the past is if there's aspects of the past that you don't want, you gotta start doing some different stuff. Otherwise you create more of it, because your life changes the moment you decide that you're 100% responsible for your experience of life. It's your life. And my strong recommendation is for you to own that. Blaming other people will never get you to where you want to be. So before I change it, is there one or two shares? I'd like to give people an opportunity to comment on anything that they just saw here, any insight. We'll take one share, actually.
Dr.
No?
Jamil, I'll
Okay.
share.
We're
For
good then.
me, big why
Please.
is the big thing. If you know your why, it makes it a lot easier to set up the goal and to achieve that goal. If there is no why, if there is no reason to do something, then what's the point of doing it? So identifying your why and really thinking about it and putting it on a vision board is something that has helped me to achieve the goals. And also reading Simon Sinek book, Start With Your Why, is really helpful to achieve that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alina. So, question for you, for everyone. Who is a successful person that you admire? Anyone have somebody in mind, whether in your industry or someone that you just, maybe could be somebody fairly famous, or it could just be someone that you know? Anyone have someone in mind that they admire from, let's say, a success perspective?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, who's that, Jonah?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't know who was.
They could go.
I think it's Samuel.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Samuel.
No.
Samuel,
Oh,
go.
me? I
Yeah.
got somebody I respect. I don't know about admire. I got somebody I respect.
Respect works.
Yeah. Somebody just said Elon Musk. I respect him because what he's provided for the world is helping the world. He's taking away carbon emissions and saving people energy, and he's doing a real productive thing for the world, and he's helping people save money as well too. So I respect what he's doing, and obviously we all know he's successful. So that's the reason why I respect him.
Beautiful. Thank you.
No problem.
And so something to keep in mind, because everyone has somebody, and this could be a family member, this could be someone in your industry that you might read their books, you might watch their videos, might be a friend of yours who's just crushing it, but whatever the case may be, you respect them, you admire them. There's something that they exhibit, qualities, characteristics. So ask yourself this question, and then you don't have to share this, but just keep it in your mind mentally. What qualities and characteristics about this person do I admire? Maybe they're really confident. Maybe they just show up in a really powerful way and they're present. Maybe they're really smart. Maybe they ask really great questions. Maybe they take chances and they're willing to step up for what they believe in. But whatever the case may be, there's something there that you admire them for. And the beauty of this, here's the secret. You're only able to recognize those qualities and characteristics in another person because they already exist in you. The only thing is you haven't developed them, or you've conditioned yourself to choose not to be that more often than not. And I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody's confident and you notice that and you say, wow, that's such a confident person. And let's say you don't identify as confident. So you look at them and you see them living in a certain way and you say, I really wish I could be like that. But the thing is, if you look into the past, are there moments, however big or however small, that you've been confident in some way or another? And the answer is always yes. Like you've exhibited it at least once. And it's not that you don't have that ability, it's that you don't use it. And so as an example, admiration is, please write that down. Admiration is projection. Anything that you admire in another is something that you're recognizing in yourself. Because if it's like saying, if I spoke Japanese, let's say, and none of you did, and I started speaking it right now, you'd have no idea what I was saying. And the reason is because Japanese does not live in you. It doesn't exist in you, so you can't hear me, other than you'll hear the sounds, but you won't make any sense of it. But if you do speak Japanese, if I just switched into Japanese right now, you'd notice I'm speaking Japanese, but you'd still understand me perfectly because it already exists in you. In that same way, confidence and any other quality or characteristic that you admire in that other person, if you recognize it, it's because it's in you. So then the question only becomes, how can you choose to step into it more? And this is really powerful because then it takes the hero, it takes this person that you might respect and admire off a pedestal. They're not any different than you. They've just chosen to cultivate this quality or characteristic to a point that is noticeable. And you can do the same thing. So just getting really clear on yourself. What is it that you admire in that other person? And how can you start choosing that for yourself? How can you start adding that in more? I feel like this is a game changer for so many people because we tell ourselves the story, oh, I'm not that way, I don't have that ability. But it's not true. The reason, if you using the Japanese example, if you don't speak Japanese, it's not because you weren't born with that skill. It's because you haven't put in the time and attention and practice to learn it. In the same way, it's not, you're not confident, it's you just don't choose to be. And anything that you haven't conditioned might be uncomfortable at first. It might be unfamiliar at first because you haven't chosen to do it. Of course, somebody who stands up and leans into that more often than not, it seems natural. It seems like they just do it. But you get people that are public speakers and they're famous singers and they go out there for massive crowds. But when they first started, they were throwing up in the bathroom because they had 4 people in the audience. You know, you got to start somewhere, but find out what you admire in somebody else and really step into it by choosing it and practice it. So a beautiful metaphor for this I like to use to bring home. When you're listening to the radio, what radio station do you hear? And let's get one person just to share based on what you think I mean by that. What radio station do you hear when you're listening to the radio?
Whatever station you tune into.
Love it. Elizabeth, thank you so much. And big kudos to Elizabeth because most people never get that. When I ask that question, they actually start giving me radio stations. I'm like, that's not what I meant. And so whatever radio station you tune into. Now notice in this picture as an example, 103.4. Now, when you're tuned into 103.4, you hear 103.4. But notice on the right, like 102.4, 107.4, 101 point, I think that's 9. Those are all available at the same time. Just because you're tuned into 103.4 and that's the only one you hear, that doesn't mean all the other radio stations cease to exist. They're all simultaneously available at the same time, always for you to tune into, but you only ever experience the one that you're tuned into. In the same way, this is how emotions work. Are you tuned into Misery FM? Are you tuned into Joy FM? And whatever emotion you're tuning into, that's what you experience. Every other emotion is available to you, moment by moment by moment. The question just becomes, what am I tuning into? And I'll dive into a little bit more how that happens. But the key again becomes, let me get clear. What am I tuning into? They're always available all the time. So some things to be careful with. This is a trap that oftentimes entrepreneurs, business owners, a lot of people run into. I'll be blank when. I'll be happy when I make that a certain amount of money. I'll be successful when, if you're in, let's say, a real estate, I've got a certain amount of doors. Or I'll be good enough when this happens. But the problem that oftentimes we run into, there's a lot of people that have exactly what you think you need to be happy, and they're not happy. And that's interesting, because if it really was the thing that would make you happy, if it was the money, if it was the amount of doors, if it was the travel, then anyone who does that would be really happy. But the fact that there are millionaires and billionaires on both sides of the spectrum who are really, really happy and fulfilled, and then there's millionaires and billionaires who are really sad, broken inside, and suicidal. And yet they have all the stuff. Some of them have islands that they own. Like, you know, they have the travel, they've got the money, they've got the stuff, and yet they don't seem to be as happy. And yet you might tell yourself the story, I'm not happy now, but when I get that stuff, then I'll be happy. And on the same side of the spectrum, there are people who are financially poor, who are really, really happy and fulfilled, way more than certain people who have so much more, you know, like in the West. And then there's people who are, you know, financially poor, who are miserable and depressed. So there's people, whether rich or poor, who are happy and miserable, and it's not because of the stuff. So my distinction, going back to doing something that excites you, there's a distinction between doing something so that you'll be happy and doing something happily. And so please write that down, and keeping in mind that a goal is a place to come from. It's not a place to get to. when you make your happiness about when I achieve this, I'll be happy, what you're doing, in my mind at least, I see this. Imagine the dog with that contraption going over it that's dangling the food, and it chases the thing that's on the stick that's hanging there. But because the thing is attached to the body of the dog, as the dog runs forward, the stick keeps going forward too. So the dog never gets the stick. In the same way, when you tell yourself, I'll be happy when, what you're doing is you're pushing out your happiness into the future. And the problem with that is the future doesn't exist. The future is a concept. It only exists in your mind. You have this moment right now, and you get to decide, how beautiful do I want to make this moment? What do I want to create for the future, but you only ever experience it now. So then the question becomes, do I want to do something so that I get happy, which never happens. You might do something and get pleasure. You might hit your goal and feel content with that for a little while. But at some point, you want it the sports car, you want it the new house, you want it whatever you want it, and you get it. And initially it's exciting. And then at some point, it's just a car. At some point, it's not enough anymore. At some point, you make more money, but then you raise your standard of living. And now that amount of money is not enough. And then you need more. And so there's no peace in more. That doesn't mean you can't have more. You can have as much as you want. And my recommendation, you're always free to do whatever you want, but my recommendation, first we get clear on what we want, create the vision that excites us, and then do it in a way that we're happy with the process. Love your life day to day. So I agree with what Evangeline said earlier about, you have to sacrifice now for what you want in the future, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself. You can really enjoy your process. I would never recommend anyone to be miserable now to be happy later, because whatever you practice, you get good at. If you practice misery, you're gonna get really good at being miserable. You don't practice misery and then get happy. That doesn't happen. And so get clear on coming from the place that you want. Be the emotion now, tune into that radio station. And I'll show you how to do that. But the idea being, emotions aren't out there. It's not like a Super Mario game back in the day where little mushroom clouds are floating around and there you are walking and you bang into one and you get to experience it. Emotions are only in you and you feel them based on your thinking. So you might say, how do I tune in to the happiness station? How do I tune in to the excited station? Whatever radio station I want to tune into, control your thinking. Get clear on what thoughts am I believing? Because you're only ever feeling your thinking. If you're feeling really depressed, if you're feeling really sad, if you're feeling really defeated, hopeless, it's because you've got some stories going on up here about why I'm never going to make it, why I'm not good enough, why, oh yeah, I thought that goal would make me happy. It didn't, I guess, whatever the case you tell yourself. But there's so many better questions you could ask yourself that would create different stories in your mind. So always just pause. What am I thinking right now? If I don't like how I'm feeling, what am I thinking? And then how can I change that to something that's more empowering? As an example, I don't really feel like working out right now. It's raining outside, but then the question, who's counting on me? It's like, I have a child who's 4 and I want to be alive for my child's wedding. And maybe, one of my parents or both of them, maybe they weren't there for mine because they didn't take care of their health and they weren't there. So I've got necessity. Boom. I've got momentum. I've got motivation now. I just tuned out of the radio station of self-defeating. And I just went into this radio station of passion and purpose. And so these are some keys to achieving your goal. Create a goal. First of all, it's specific. I make this distinction between a laser and a light bulb. The light bulb, as it turns on, it's got this kind of general light to it. It'll light up the room, which is beautiful, but it's not going to set anything on fire. It's very dispersed energy. But the laser beam is highly concentrated, highly focused. It's not lighting the room up, but the right laser, you point that at something, that energy is so concentrated and condensed, it can start a fire. You want that when it comes to your goal. You want that when it comes to your dream. It's specific, so you know exactly what you're going after. And then it's measurable, and measurable means 2 things. It means a number or an event. If you can't track it, don't call it a goal. It's either going to be a certain amount of money, a certain weight, a certain amount of doors, or it's an event. Something's going to happen. Like, how will you know when you get there? If it's vague and you can't measure it with a number or with an event, something's going to happen, like a milestone that'll let you know that you're there, then it's not going to give you that power, that excitement, because you won't be able to track it. Third, make sure it's meaningful to you. I said earlier, creating an extraordinary life without regret. Well, an extraordinary life is a life on your terms. So if your goal is meaningful to somebody else, but it's not meaningful to you, then you're not going to stick with it. You're going to tell yourself when you don't feel like it, what's the point? Like, it doesn't matter. It has to be meaningful to you. It's got to be exciting for you. It's going to allow you to create a life that matters for you. Number 4, it benefits the other areas of your life. If you create a goal, as an example, let's imagine you grew up in a household that finances were a big issue. And let's say that caused a lot of stress. And let's say your parents were always arguing about it. And let's say one of your parents worked, and let's say one of your parents was home. And the parent who worked had the perspective, well, I have to work because I have to make money and I have to put it on the table, but they weren't home. And so then you tell yourself, now my goal is I want to make more money and I want to really, create a successful business. But you also have a goal that you want to have a loving, thriving family. You can have both, but because of potentially the conditioned thought processes and beliefs from childhood, you might think if I set a goal to make more money, then that's going to hurt my relationship. And if you think that, it doesn't have to be true, but it could be true for you. And if you think that, you can see how you might self-sabotage your financial goal. You might self-sabotage how successful you could be because you might not even be conscious of it. Deep down, you might believe, if I'm successful in this way, my parents got divorced because of that. So if I'm successful, what if that happens to me? So you want to set a goal that benefits all the other areas of your life. So whatever your goal is, at the end of this, when we create that, get really clear. How does it benefit let's say it's a business goal. How does it benefit my family? How does it benefit my health, my mental state, my emotions? How does it benefit my spiritual side of my life? How does it benefit all these different areas, my personal growth and development? When you get clear on that, it just strengthens the desire to make that goal happen. And number 5, give it a deadline. Things will take as long as you give them. Some of you might remember going back to like school days. Oh, someone just drew on my slide. That was interesting. When you make a goal so when you give a goal a deadline, think about it like this. There you are back in school, and I say, you have this assignment, it's due in 3 months. What do most people do? Most people will tell themselves, oh, I got 3 months, I can do that in a couple days. So they don't do it. They don't do it in the beginning. And then 2 months, and then a month goes by. They still haven't started it. I should probably do that. 2 months go by. They've got 1 month left. Haven't started it. Eventually, it's like, is that tomorrow? And from that place, now they have the necessity, and now they do it. And they might have taken them 3 hours to do, but it really took them like 3 months to do it. It was on their mind for 3 months, but they just did it in 3 hours. So the case might be, if you give yourself a deadline, I'm going to do this in the next 6 months. You can likely do it in 6 months. But if you tell yourself the same goal, I'll do that in 3 years, it'll probably take you 3 years. So one of you mentioned Grant Cardone earlier. He talks about that, 10x your life and all that kind of stuff. This idea of whatever your goal is, make it like audacious, like lower the time frame that you give yourself to be successful with it. And if you do that, it'll cause you to take more action, bigger action on a day-to-day basis, and you'll make bigger strides. Perfect. And as we kind of come to a conclusion, these are the 4 requirements for lasting change from what I've seen with my clients and just people that I've met in my life. The first one is to release stuck negative emotions, limiting beliefs, limiting decisions from your past. I used the example of like the family growing up with the kids and the money and how that caused issues. This is something that most people ignore. They create goals, but they don't release the potential foundation that's unstable. And so as they try to build on it, it falls apart. And so think of it from a psychological perspective. There's something called the imprinting phase. From 0 to 7 years old, that's where so much of your personality is shaped. That's where you absorb, what the beliefs were and the thought processes were, and how your parents and caretakers and friends and family, how they viewed life. That kind of became a part of you unconsciously. And you can change it, but you have to be aware of it. And most of us aren't aware of it. And so if you're not aware of it, you keep living it out. And to give you some examples, this is one client of mine, real estate broker. He had this he still does, but massive vision for his life. He's chasing success, but he didn't really know why. When I asked him, why are you doing this? Who are you doing all this for? And he was unhappy. And it turned out after digging into it, deep down, he felt like he wasn't enough and he wasn't loved. and he needed to prove himself to his parents because when he was younger, his sister was always the like unconditional love was given to her, but he always had to prove himself. He was the athlete. He was the I got to be a straight A student and the best athlete in order for dad to like give me any type of praise. And he was so surprised when he learned that because he's like, I had no idea that was driving me. A different person, a real estate investor, different client, you know, he had this poor financial blueprint from childhood. And even though he's successful right now, he manages his money horribly. And it's because he has this financial sabotage blueprint as an adult from when he watched his parents spend money in a certain way. Different client, real estate agent. This guy lost a child, really difficult, lost a child in his 30s. He was in his 30s, the child was young. And ever since then, he's had low confidence, relationship ended up falling apart. And now he has little to no desire to invest in people because he has this fear of losing them just like he lost the child. And you can imagine how that would cause relationship troubles for him now as he's trying to date and meet new people. And one final example, a real estate broker. This person was abused as a child. They experienced multiple traumas. And ever since, they've sabotaged all their romantic relationships because the idea is, I can't trust you. They don't even know you, but mentally, you're like playing into this story that they have that I'll let you get close, but not too close. And these are just some examples of emotional baggage, limiting beliefs, limiting decisions that we didn't choose them, but they're in us. And they actually hold us back. And if we're not aware of that and we don't deal with it, they can sabotage our goals. Once we've released them, we create the compelling vision. We create the goal for the future. We talked about that. We take action and we enforce our boundaries. I ask you, what are you tolerating? You get rid of the stuff that you're tolerating and you get real comfortable saying the words no. Because no allows you to protect what's important to you. A lot of you, without even knowing you, if it's just statistically accurate, a lot of you are saying yes to things because you want to please people. You're saying yes to things because you don't want to hurt people's feelings, but you're not respecting you. You're not respecting your time. You're not respecting what's important to you. And you're sacrificing your goals and dreams for things that aren't that important. And finally, maintain your focus on what you want, course correct as needed until you accomplish your goal. So you release the limiting beliefs, the stuck emotions, you got a solid foundation, you create the vision, the goal for the future, you take the action, you enforce your boundaries, and then you keep the focus on what you want and you course correct. Because again, we're always gonna get off track. Life happens, it gets in the way. I said before, failure is not the execution sentence, oh, I failed, it's over. It's the stepping stone, it's how you get there. And so from this place, all right, I'm a little bit off track, get back on track. Every day is a new day, every moment's a new opportunity. And in order to maintain your progress, 3 types of accountability. Number 1, self-accountability, meaning you might say, this is my goal, and you just keep yourself accountable. You track it on paper, you talk to yourself, you do whatever you got to do. That's one type of accountability. Second type of accountability, coaching, working with somebody, having that external accountability. And the third is called peer accountability. Peer accountability is the person who calls people in their network and says, hey, this is what I'm doing. Could I like send you a text message once a week or something like that, just to keep me accountable because I know that I promised somebody else that I was going to do this. Or you could take it one step further and say, hey, Facebook, this is my goal for the next 6 months. And I'm publicly announcing if I don't do it, I'm going to give everyone who likes this post $50. And you can imagine now 6 months from that day, if you're going to be in integrity, you're going to have to post, I either did it or I didn't. And that might give you a reason to do it, right? And so this is an example of whatever game you got to play with yourself, whether it's working with yourself, finding a coach, or doing peer accountability, give yourself a reason to succeed. Second, daily tracking is something called Pearson's Law. Pearson's Law just says what you measure, what you measure grows, and what you measure and track grows exponentially. So you can track, let's say you want to lose weight loss. You could track how much water you're drinking. You can track how many people you're reaching out to and speaking to for business. You could track how much money you're making and you're focusing on that. You can track how many times you're walking. You could track the distance that you're walking, whatever it is you want to do. But have some paper, write it down every day, look at it. And this goes into the third one. Celebrate your small wins. Celebrate the milestones. You have positive reinforcement when you do that. And there's like a self-acknowledgement. wow, I did better than I did yesterday, or better than I was last week, or better than last month. This creates this positive momentum, because oftentimes if you have this big goal, if you wait to celebrate until the end, then the whole time it's like not there yet, not there yet, not there yet, not there yet, versus the whole time it's better than I was yesterday, better than I was yesterday. Wow, this is pretty good. Oh, I'm not better than I was yesterday. Let me do something about that. I'm proud of myself for that. There's these mini micro wins. And when you do that, it allows you to keep momentum and get where you're going. And so as we wrap up, think about how you're spending your energy. There's you on the left, potentially, trying to do 10 different things at the exact same time. The problem with this, you get frustrated and you get little to no results because you're spreading yourself so thin, versus you on the right. And you on the right does one thing at a time. The cure to overwhelm, please write this down. The cure to overwhelm is do one thing at a time. Sounds so simple. Anyone who's feeling overwhelmed isn't doing it. Do one thing at a time, because the only thing you ever have to do is the thing in front of you. If you get in your head and say, I've got 50,000 things to do, of course you're going to overwhelm yourself. I said before, you're only ever feeling your thinking. Anyone's going to get freaked out if they're believing I have 50,000 things to do and I only have 2 hours to do it. Like, that's not going to work. But if you get clear, what's the one thing right now, but just choose. If they're all equally important, pick one. And if one matters more, pick that. And you do it. I promise you, you're far more effective and efficient when you do one thing at a time, 10 times, than when you try to do 10 things at once. When you try to do 10 things at once, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be as effective and efficient, and you're going to end up having to go back and do it again. So pick one thing at a time. And finally, focus on today. This is a client of mine. His name is Steve. He was the American Taekwondo world champion, 2018, 2019. And he had some audacious goals. His wonderful dream of retirement, living on this gorgeous Caribbean island, having a vacation home in the West Coast, a fun and adventure-filled career where he can start that would add a lot of value and joy to his experience of life, a passionate and loving relationship with his wife. And just like any of you, you all have big goals. The key, it won't happen overnight. Commit to today and win the day. Get clear on what you need to do today to move yourself forward. And if you just did that every week, every day, you're making substantial progress. But if you tell yourself all these things that you got to do and you get overwhelmed, that leads to that analysis paralysis. And then you don't end up moving forward. And so the reality of the situation is you got the arrow going to the right, which I call your default future. And this is what happens in your life if you just say, if you're here today and you just take good notes and you never look at your notes again and you keep living the way you've been living, that arrow on the right is your future, meaning life stays about the same. Or you look at your notes and you actually do something with it. You look at your notes, no matter, it could be one thing, it could be 50 things. It doesn't matter how this could have sucked for you or this experience could have been great. Either way, find the one thing that you can take from today and apply it. And your life starts to go in a whole different trajectory, which is this way up. Because 20 years from now, there's that expression rather, you'll be more disappointed by what you didn't do than by what you did. And 20 years from now, assuming we're all fortunate to still be here, 20 years from now, that time's going to come anyway. So telling yourself the story, I'd love to do that, but it's going to take time, that is not a reason not to do it, because the time's going to happen anyway. And then when that day comes, you're either going to have it or you're going to sit there and go, I wish I started, 20 years ago. And there's the definition that I heard it like sent shivers through me that I want to share with you. And it's the definition, or it's a definition of hell. Hell is on your last day on this planet, the person you became meets the person you could have been. And I see some of you like, ooh, like, wow. When you let that sink in, the person that you became comes face to face with who you could have been. Using a number representation, that's your 10 out of 10, and you're playing at like a 4. And you're having all these regrets, and you see that person and you go, that could have been me. Don't be that person. If you already can sit here right now and say, oh, I don't want that, the key is back it up with action. Do something about it, because you have all the power to change your life. This is a PDF that I'm giving to all of you as a gift that I'd like you to, as an assignment for this weekend. I'm going to put it in the chat in the next 20 seconds or so. So please open the chat up. You're going to see a file that I'm about to drop in there. Please download it. There it is. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Thumbs up if you see that. You guys got that? All right, everyone, please you can open it up if you'd like. It's the same thing on the screen that I'm about to put back up. But so we've got what I call your map of success. And before I explain it to you, Alina's going to break us up into a breakout room. If we have an even number of people, it'll just be rooms of 2. If there's an odd number of people, you'll be in a room of 3. These, for this weekend at least, these will be your accountability partners. And all you're going to do is take 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll come back together, exchange names, and exchange, if you don't know each other, and exchange whatever best contact information. This could be a phone call, this could be a Zoom call, whatever you want it to be, and commit sometime between now and Sunday. It could be Saturday, Sunday, but pick a time. It could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, whatever you want it to be. And on this time, you're going to connect and share what your map of success looks like with each other. And at the end of that call, if you guys are really vibing and you want to continue holding each other accountable, you can do that. So Alina, if you can, please break people up into the breakout rooms, and then just again, name, contact info, and then come back to the group.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I'm not seeing the link in the chat. Would you mind resending it?
Sure. Yeah, give me
Thanks.
1 second.
It's not a link, guys. It's an attachment.
Oh, it's a file. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see the file, or is that not there for you? The person who's asking.
I don't see it yet. Would it come through in the chat, or do I need to look somewhere else?
It's in the chat. Yeah, it's in the chat. Just look for a text from Dr. Jamil.
I'll put it
Okay,
again.
maybe it's because I'm on a mobile device. I'll keep checking for it.
I just put it in again. It should be the most recent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's there.
And if for whatever reason you don't get it, just please message me directly or stay on after the call, and I'll just email it to you.
Okay.
And so,
Thank you very much.
yeah, you're
Are you
welcome.
guys ready for the breakout room? So again, 2 minutes for the breakout rooms, right?
Yep. So just the name and best way to connect with you over the weekend, and pick a day and time and those kind of things.
Okay.
Or the day and time can be picked later, but at least get the contact information and the name.
Okay, let's do that. You should be all moving to the breakout rooms now.
Perfect. Alina, I'm going to stay, okay?
Yep.
Is this Diego and Rick's room, or did they not go?
They did not go yet.
Okay.
They should all be going. I mean, everyone is assigned the breakout room.
Perfect.
Rick, did you see your room?
Hi there. I was in room 4, but I didn't see any other participants. Would you mind adding me to a different room?
Sure. Okay.
Or if you want, she can work with Rick, if Rick's still here.
Yeah, Rick, did you see? Rick is gone. Okay. No problem. I'll do that. I'm gonna add you to another room.
Thank you.
Mhm. Bear with me. I thought it would let me drag person. It's not letting me drag you. Interesting. David, do you want to work with Elizabeth?
And if he's not there, Alina, maybe you would be up for it.
Sure. I thought I could drag Elizabeth into the room. That's so weird.
I think there's usually like a drop down
Oh,
option next to the name, and then you do an assignment.
I
You
see it.
select which room.
Okay, I'm moving you to a room. You should
Okay, thank you.
see the invite now.
Perfect. And we'll just give it like 1 minute.
Yeah. Dr. Jamil, this was very powerful. Thank you. No, that this was excellent. I loved it.
First, thank you so much. And I want to apologize because for what I don't know the reason, but it took longer than I expected and I went over time. But I don't have a hard stop unless you guys do.
No problem. I expected that kind of because most presenters do take longer than they say they will. So I kind of expected that.
Yeah, we're basically done. The last like 2 slides. So there won't be that much longer. But if people, I'm fine sticking around for another 5 or 10 minutes after if people have questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll bring them back in about a minute or so. I had to reshuffle them a little because I saw some people not joining. Maybe they needed to leave. So I wanted to make sure that other people have the room.
Perfect. I
Have a
noticed
contact.
David was there with his mic off and video off, so he might have stepped away. I'm not sure if he was actually there or not.
Looks like he joined the room. I mean, I see him in a room, so hopefully that's the case. 8:23. I'm gonna close the rooms and bring them all back.
Perfect.
They should be closing in about a minute. Do you do a lot of presentations like this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Before COVID, I would do a good amount in person. And then since COVID, I've spoken at several real estate events, but also just a lot of stuff on Zoom. And so it's been a lot of fun and
Yeah.
just ways to contribute and give back and give people some wake up calls.
Yeah, it's amazing. And unfortunately, what I noticed typically, uh, life events, personal events typically serve as wake-up calls,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
Hey guys, welcome back. I
Yeah.
hope you got a chance to exchange your contact information with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Alina. I was gonna ask Jamil if I could. I had to go to an emergency. That I had to go drive my son because his car stalled in the freeway. So,
Oh
but
my
I've been
God.
listening the whole time. I've been listening the whole time. I just could not type in or access the chat. So
Yeah.
I
I'll
don't
send it
know
to you.
if Jamil will be kind to
Yeah.
email me the PDF file.
Chat, I can email you, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Perfect.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
I hope your son is okay and whoever he is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's okay. He's now just waiting for the AAA. Yeah. Thankfully, it's not too bad.
Good.
Perfect. I'll send it to you too, chat. Is this everybody?
Oh,
Or are we still waiting on a few?
I think everyone's here.
Perfect. Okay. So let me just bring this back up as we finish up. Quick explanation, just so people have an idea of what this is actually about. Okay, there we go. So as you come up, think of it like your homework. The homework for today, before you speak to your partner, whether it's one person or 2 people, you get clear on that vision based on what we talked about. What excites you? What would be wonderful? Start with the top left. What's your vision 3 years from now? If life could look like anything that you wanted it to be, what would that be? And then once you get clear on that, this is where you reverse engineer it and you say, all right, if that's my life at 3 years, where could I be at 1 year, at 12 months from now to be on track to get that? Could be a certain amount of money. You could make it just simple and say, oh, it's like a third, or it could be whatever milestone you want it to be. It could be a certain amount of doors. It could be a certain amount of clients, certain weight. It could be many different things, but whatever is important to you, where do you want to be at 12 months so you're on track for your 3 year? And then once you've got that, you break it down even further. 90-day project. And you just focus, all right, for the next 90 days, what would I need to accomplish by day 90 to be on track for my 1 year? And then once you've got that, you can break it down even further and just focus on what actions do I need to take this week to be on track for my 90-day project. The reason why this is powerful, most of us focus on the vision and we forget about the actions to do this week. Or we focus on the vision and the actions for this week, but we leave out the goal and the project. So what ends up happening is you've got this really big picture vision that might feel so far away from where you are right now that it might feel a little bit overwhelming. And because you're so far away from it, you might get deterred from that. Versus you've got your vision, then you bring it to 1 year, you bring it to your project. And at that point, you never have to think about your vision and your goal again. You just focus on the project and say, this is what I need to do. for the next 3 months. And then when you break it down further, this is my action this week. This is where you can speak to people and you can say, all right, this is my goal for the week. This is my project for the week. This is my daily task for the week. What's yours? If you've got an accountability partner or something like that. And this is just a way of keeping your goal and your vision really streamlined and keeping your focus where it needs to be. Because you'll know if you're doing your actions for the week and then you say, all right, my project for the 90 days, I was successful with it, then you know you're on track to hit your yearly goal, which means you're on track to hit your vision. But if you know within the first week, the first 90 days, I'm not actually winning my week and I didn't succeed on my 90-day project, then you're not on track to hit your year. You don't have to wait 3 years to find out that you didn't make it. You can find out in the next 7 days and then you can course correct. So this is a way of just making sure that you get where you want to go. And so when I was in med school, there was this whiteboard I had at the foot of my bed, nowhere near as cool as this one. And it was really small. And there was these 3 quotes that I put on there. I saw them every day and they deeply impacted how I was showing up. And I want to share them with you because I feel like it doesn't matter what industry, business you're in, it applies. The first, do something today your future self will thank you for. There's a movie that I always think about when I say this called Back to the Future. And in the movie, there's a scene where the guy goes back into the future, into the past rather, and he changes something. And because of what he did, his parents don't end up ever meeting. And so he has a photo in his pocket where he's in the photo with his family. And after he changed that, he pulls the photo out and he disappears from the photo. This idea that he doesn't exist anymore in the future because he changed the past. In the same way, that future you, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, living the dream as successful as you could possibly imagine, only will exist if you make decisions every day that future you will thank you for, that are in alignment with the kind of life you want to create for yourself. And so think of it as every time I make this decision to invest in a certain way, to work out in a certain way, to speak to people in a certain way, to do whatever, to put myself in a certain networking group, whatever the case may be, what's future me thinking, I'm so proud of you. Like that's something that if you're aware of that daily, it's so powerful. The second, be the reason someone smiles today. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Business is a relationship game. It's about people. If you give people an experience that it astonishes them, it's so valuable for them, they want more. If you help people, if you make them feel good, they want to be around you. And so from that place, if you live from this perspective, how can I do something today that future me would be really proud of? How can I be the reason other people are smiling today? That source of, let's say, joy. And then third, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? And then live that way. There are things that excite you. There are things that you really want to do, but you're afraid. There's some voice in your head. What if this happens? What if this happens? And it causes you to play small. That doesn't mean be reckless, but it means be clear on what that inner voice is calling for you to do. That soul, that intuition, that gut feeling, whatever it is, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? How would you show up? And that energy is not only infectious, but it's very attractive for success. And so with every decision, this is, I think, the last slide, with every decision, you recreate yourself. The price of living your new life is giving up your old one. Figure out what you want, get crystal clear, figure out why it matters, figure out who you need to be to make that happen, get any help that you think you might need. And then I want to be the first today to welcome you into this next chapter of your life, because the rest of your life starts right now. And my encouragement is make it count. So thank you all so much. I loved being with you. I definitely went over time, so my apologies on that. And I'm open to any questions, anything that anyone wants to say or share, insights.
Wow, Dr. Jamil, this was so powerful. Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you so much. Really grateful for that. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing as always. Amazing. Amazing.
Beautiful.
I saw Lisa had her hand up.
Just sort of one question. What do you think of all the stumbling blocks? What do you, of kind of going down this path, what do you think is the biggest one and the best way to overcome it? Like, what do you see most often?
As simple as it sounds, the biggest stumbling block is a fear of failure. It's a fear, and everyone might have a different reason for why they're afraid of failing. I told you some of the clients, oh, if I fail, my family won't love me. I won't be enough. If I fail, it means this, it means this. But ultimately, it's like, I'm afraid to try. I'm afraid to put myself out there. You think of a little kid, and people say little kids learn languages so much easier than adults. And there's some truth to that. But one of the reasons, the little kid's not thinking in terms of shame. The little kid's not thinking in terms of self-judgment. I'm so dumb. I've been trying to get this for 2 weeks and I'm not there yet. That doesn't happen in the mind of the little kid. So the little kid just soaks it up, says the word incorrectly, they get corrected, they get it right. The adult takes forever to learn it because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to try. They're afraid to sound, in their mind, dumb. And so when you let that go, there are adults that are 30, 40, and 50 that at that point only spoke one language, and now they speak 5. Saying I'm not good at languages is an excuse. It's a cop-out. Do you actually apply it? If I told you right now, I'm going to give you $100 million if this time next year you are fluent in whatever language you choose that you don't know right now. If you actually wanted to take me up on that, and I guaranteed you I would give you that money, you would do the bare minimum of what you needed to do for work to just pay your bills. You would move to that country probably to make sure that you're immersed in it. You would read all the books. You'd have the apps on the phone. You'd watch the videos with the subtitles in English. So you're learning how it sounds. You're contacting people who speak the language and you're speaking to them frequently. You make it happen when you want it. And so in that same way, when you're not afraid to try, when you're not afraid to look bad, it doesn't matter. Like, stop comparing yourself to other people. Just compare yourself to you. And I think if you do that, that's the biggest stumbling block that gets in everybody's way. For different reasons, but that's the biggest stumbling block that I've found.
Incredible. Very, very powerful.
Anyway,
Dr. Jamil, are there any books that you recommend people to read on this topic?
so it's interesting because I've got like literally like 1,000 books over here. It really depends on what somebody is looking for. If people have, it's a very individualized, personalized question. So I think if somebody has an area in life they want to improve and they want a book recommendation, if you send me a message, Facebook, Messenger, whatever you want, just put my name in. I'd be happy to make a book recommendation. You just let me know where you're at right now in your life.
In terms of connecting with you, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
This can be good. This is probably the simplest. I'm going to put a link in the chat, and here we go. Here you go. This link, I use this in my, BNI group, and it's really effective. And so it's one link that has all my information. My phone number's in there, my email's in there, anything that you would possibly want to connect with me on is in there. And so, yeah, that's one way to keep in touch.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else have any other questions? Anything that I can either support you through, or any insights? Anyone want to share kind of their biggest takeaway from today?
I do have a question. It's not fully formed yet, but I was hoping you could speak a little bit more about deadlines. I sometimes feel like by putting a deadline, it really kills my motivation to work towards it. And then if I don't meet a deadline, that again kills the motivation to keep working at it or to get at it. So I don't, yes, deadlines can sometimes, motivate action, but I think in some cases it kind of takes me away from my why. I'm not very motivated by a deadline with no context. So if you can find the question there and speak to it a little bit, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. Elizabeth, is that what you
Thanks for hearing it as a question. Yes, it's Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And so think of it like this for everybody. A lot of people, from the medical background that I have and just the coaching background that I have, a lot of people look for what's the right way. There is no right way. There's no right way to eat. There's no right way to be. The right way to be, the right way to eat, the right way to act is the right way for you. So keep in mind that everything I shared, because it's not a one-on-one conversation, that's why I said take what's useful. There are aspects of it that might not work for you. There's aspects of it that you might find, I've tried that before, that didn't feel good. So for you, as an example, you said having a deadline, you said without, I think you said without context or without like a real meaning of it.
Well, I'm trying to think about why I have a negative feeling towards deadlines. And I guess my answer is the deadline itself is not motivating. So maybe the solution then is to go back to what is my why? What do I actually care about? Because the deadline in my eyes is arbitrary. And that's why when I'm not motivated by it, it, it's not
Yeah.
serving me. But if I'm more in touch with, what great thing will happen in the world as a result of meeting this arbitrary deadline, then I might be more inclined to
Yeah.
care about the deadline and do it.
So the key is what you said about arbitrary. That's why I said
Yeah,
when it came to,
all deadlines feel pretty arbitrary.
and that's why like the word deadline, if you think about the origination of that word, it literally meant, here's a line. And if you don't cross this line by a certain time, something dies. That was what the original meaning of a deadline is. If you actually have a deadline, it's motivating. But if it's more of an arbitrary thing, that if it comes from this place of, oh, by March 15th, I'm going to be here. But like March 15th, like nothing happens on March 16th if you don't get it, then there's not a lot of motivation. Some people can do that and be motivated. If that's you, awesome. And if it's not, then get clear. What's something that I would want to put on the line? But if I don't cross that line by March 15th, it might be a certain charity that I donate to. Some people make it even worse where it's like it's a charity that I don't want to donate to. And that's where the money goes. But give yourself kind of a consequence of not achieving it. That's one way to make a deadline attractive to the point where it actually matters. In the same way that back in the school days, oh, the final exam paper is due on this day. What's the consequence if you don't do it? You fail the class. And then what happens if you fail the class? You don't move forward. And if you don't move forward, you get held back a year. Like, you don't want that. So you'll pull an all-nighter if you have to get it done, because it has to be done by that day. In that same way, you give yourself some type of reason. And again, some people don't even feel like they need a deadline. Some people feel like they like keeping it more open and going with the flow. That's cool. But again, always base it on results. If you're just going to go with the flow and not have a deadline, are you getting the results that you want? If the answer is no, if you're finding that things are getting backed up, if you're finding the goals you have now are the same goals you had 8 months ago, then maybe a deadline would serve you. And so I think getting clear in that sense. Does that answer the question, Elizabeth?
That definitely helps. I think it's reinforcing the message from before and kind of my hunch that being clear on my reason, like why bother? Why bother doing this activity, and why does it need to be done by this date? Not just because someone told me to do it or because I told myself I would do it, that there's an actual consequence that is helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any question or anything they want to share? Maybe with an insight, biggest takeaway from today?
Dr.
I'll
Jamil, this was incredible.
Thank you.
It's really good. Go ahead, Evangeline.
I was going to say, when you said about projection, somebody, my son mentioned Elon Musk. I agree with you 100%, because if you said to me, how do you feel about Steve Jobs? As successful as he was, I read some things about how, God rest his soul, but he didn't support his daughter and he dumped his girlfriend when he made it. So to me, I think about that. I'm like, I don't want to be like Steve Jobs. I want to be like somebody else, so the projection is very real. And I never thought of it like that ever.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad that stuck out to you.
Yeah.
I'm seeing in the chat some people that have been typing. I'm glad that everyone's gotten so much out of this.
Yeah, no, this has been an amazing session. It looks like everyone got something, at least a little bit of something out of it. I definitely got a lot out of it. So thank you so much again, Dr. Jamil. Want to respect everyone's time. Guys, you have Dr. Jamil information. Reach out if there's anything, any questions for me. If you want to reach out, you know to find me as well. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is ready to set up their goals, and we'll meet with their accountability partner in a few days, and we'll get it going. Let's crush 2021. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Sounds
good night.
great. Thank you. Take care.
Dr.
Bye.
Jamil, can I ask you a question to you?
Yeah, please. And
First of all, 2 points. One is in regard to why. I learned it to be, if you have a big enough why, you'll find the reason. And then in Andersonville, Georgia, where the concentration camp was, or the prison, excuse me, the prison was, during the Civil War, they would have a line in the sand. If you cross that line, you were dead. And I don't know if that's where it first started, but that's what the deadline meant to them.
Yeah.
And the third part, since you're a natural path, you did such a fabulous job on this goal-oriented. Can I ask you your top 5 reasons and ways to handle bladder cancer naturopathically?
One-on-one, you could.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I want
Just
to be respectful of everybody.
contact you through that email you left or
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
website?
Yeah, depending on where you live, I might be able to refer to a colleague who, because I have the degree and the knowledge, but I focus primarily on my coaching, the business, the relationship, and the life side of it. And I add in health when appropriate. I have clients that they're business owners and entrepreneurs, and maybe they want to grow their business, but the energy is low, they're tired all the time and all that kind of stuff. And I help them with that. But in an area like that, I would give you what I can, and then I would connect you with somebody who fully practices with that, sees that on the daily, and knows the best way to serve you in that way. So if that's of interest, I'd be happy to connect with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So
Thank you.
connect with Dr. Jamil directly.
Just one thing that I want to say, and I recently was listening to in an audiobook, and when you were asking about the difference between interested and committed, it says when you're interested, you do when it's convenient for you. If it's easy for you, you're interested, you do it. But when you're committed, then you do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in my personal demons that I'm dealing with is kind of finding that drive, that commitment to get to where I want to go, because that's what I struggle, in my personal life. But that was, seeing you mention it and kind of explaining and working through kind of opened my eyes and kind of like helped me go through. I think I know what it is. And now, I'll use my daughter, which she means everything to me, and I don't want to disappoint her. So that's my commitment now. That's my why.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you
two
very
things.
much. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing, first of all. And 2 things to what you said. First thing, let me get my thoughts right. A bunch of things came up. First thing is when it comes to commitment, imagine this as a metaphor. If I were to say to you, imagine you have a flight. Today is Thursday. Imagine if I say Saturday, you're leaving at 12 o'clock, whatever time, 12 o'clock in your time, you're going to be at the airport because you're going somewhere. And you're really excited for that trip. And I say, hey, you want to get lunch Saturday at 2? The answer is not like, I'll try. The answer is no, because you have a trip scheduled. And I might say, but what if you don't make it? And there's this look of, no, like, I'm going to be there. Like, and I say, yeah, but what if like you wake up late? And you'll say, I won't. I'll set like 12 alarms. And then I might say, yeah, but what if like you forget your ticket? Well, I won't. Like, I'm going to make sure I do that. And then it's like, well, what happens if you get there and you missed your flight? Well, then I'll schedule the next earliest one. Like, there's this, I'm going to be in wherever I need to get to. Because people who've never missed a flight, how many of you have ever missed a flight?
No, never.
One. And notice that when you either never miss one, or even if you missed it, from this perspective of, you say, I'm going to be on that plane. I'm going to find a way to get to wherever it is I got to get. And if I missed the plane, is it fair to say, Evangeline, that you got on the soonest one you could? If you wanted
Oh,
to?
yeah.
Yeah. Versus, can you use that same commitment? I'll be in the airport at Saturday at 11 to get to my flight at 12. Can you say that exact same thing in terms of, I'll be at that meeting next week at 12. You can count on it. There's no chance in hell I'm missing it. I will walk every day for 2 miles. Otherwise, if I don't, I'll give you my life savings. I'm that confident because I know I'm going to do it. You can apply that same commitment to every area of your life. Almost nobody does. That's why they don't get what they want.
That's
Get
very
clear
strong.
on commitment. Commitment is the key to everything you want. And when you mentioned, this was see if I can connect the two. When Diego mentioned his daughter and having a strong enough why, yes. And then Elizabeth mentioned deadline. For some people, they use goals unintentionally, but it turns into this like shaming mechanism. it turns into, this is my goal and this is my deadline. And then they approach it and then they don't get it. And now they feel bad. Now they shame themselves, they blame themselves, they give themselves the guilt trip. Oh, I didn't make it. What does that mean about me? And now they tell themselves the story. Maybe I'm not good enough, maybe this. And I said before, the radio station, that thinking creates the feeling. And then there you are going through the day in this disempowered place. Versus you create a goal that really excites you, really inspires you. You use this tracker that we talked about, so you know exactly what the week needs to be for the project, for the goal, for the year, and for the vision. So you know you're on track, or you know you're not on track, which means you can do something about it. When you actually make the commitment, metaphorically with the plane, I'm gonna be on that plane in 90 days, well then there's certain things you gotta do. Along the way, you need to buy the ticket, you need to pack, you need to like get off from work, or you need to clear up the calendar. You gotta do all that before you go. In that same kind of way, what's your 90-day project? What are the activities you gotta do every week, every month leading up to that to be on track? And that applies to health, relationships, business, any area of success. And then you get clear on the deadline, but you don't use it as a means of, if I don't get it, I'm a bad person. You use the deadlines from a perspective that I'm setting this deadline for me, to help me. And it might even, and then, you could set a deadline that would, like, if I don't get it, I'll give money to this charity that I like. But then you might use that as an excuse not to do it because you want to give to the charity. So if you make it something that you don't want to do it, it makes it more powerful.
Amazing,
So-
amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Thank you, guys. I have to
Dr.
get going.
Jamil and Alina, can I just take 20 seconds for a
I have to go,
platform?
Rick. I'm sorry. I really have to go, but thank you